We're going to talk about changes in the market and changes in your lifestyle on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Hi there, my name's Charles Ray Dawson. I am the residential sales manager and associate broker at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 174. And I hope everybody's having a great day out there. Heat's starting to pick up. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but hey, you're not going to throw your back out shoveling sunshine out of your driveway now, are you? So that's I was talking to a friend of mine. He's in Texas, and he's like literally threatening his son, "You will go get a job or you will work for me. And all the work you're going to be doing around the house is going to be outside in Texas in the 90s. That's 90 degrees and 90% humidity." So all of a sudden, kid found himself a job. Amazing how that works out. So I hope everybody's having a pretty good week. Unlike previous episodes, I was able to actually sit there and do some research today, desperately try and find something interesting to talk about. Not a lot of national news, not a lot of local news. On a semi-related note to that, I was on a Zoom call this Saturday dealing with some veterans issues, and the person that we have there who watches the state legislature has said pretty much the state legislature has come to a complete screaming stop because they are discussing abortion bills and this border bill, and not to expect anything to come out after, until those two had gotten taken care of. The border bill, I saw a little blurb saying that it had been passed, so we'll see how well that's going to work. Sounds like Arizona is trying to copy Texas in the concept of the state is going to enforce federal laws. That's been dealt with before, so it's just legislators got to legislate. So nothing on that side. Interest rates have came down for a little bit last week, bouncing. It bounces, and this one seems to be trending a little low. Still no word on whether or not we're going to get a rate cut. Did see something today about how the Fed is trying to keep interest rates high to fight inflation, while Janet Yellen at the Treasury keeps making the printer machines go brrr. And it was an editorial, so take it not just with a grain of salt, but with the entire salt cellar, that Janet Yellen is trying to goose the economy before the election. She's got 5 months left to do it, so she's making the machines go burr. Meanwhile, the Fed is trying to... So you got two people in the same driver's seat, one stomping on the brake and the other one slamming the pedal to the floor, right? I've never done that to a car. I'm not sure exactly what would happen to it, your car, if you did that. I do know what happens if you load the car up and hold the parking brake, and then you can dump it real quick and get an extra second or two off the line. Thanks, Dad, for teaching me how to do that. But hey, what does it do to the economy? It means that our rates are pretty much stuck at 7s. And I think they're going to be stuck at 7s for quite some time. More and more people are starting to turn around in my way of thinking on this. So what do we do with the new normals? I'm sitting here looking at a house that one of our agents has for sale, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, decent size, for $450. All right, and she's starting to get phone calls. People are asking about can you guys do seller carrybacks or wraps or anything like that? And there's a lot of potential problems with those on the seller side if you want to do a seller carryback or a wrap. If you have all of your equity in the house and it's been paid off for years, and you got a buyer comes along who just can't qualify for the loan at the rate that you want to sell it at, but you could loan them the money to buy the house from you, which is basically what a seller carryback is, and then all of a sudden it's an option. But if you have an existing loan and a lender out there who is not interested in you leaving the house, and not, lenders have an assumption that you are living in the house and it's your home, you're going to be more interested in making sure the mortgage payment gets paid than if you're not. That's why investors tend to have a slightly higher interest rate when they're borrowing money to buy an investment property. In this particular case, there's things out there called acceleration clauses, that if for some reason the bank suddenly realizes that you're not on title to the house that you have a loan on, they can call the loan due immediately. Pay me this loan now. So I'm not a big fan of these things. I know a lot of agents out there are starting to use these as a little hook, trying to get houses sold faster. Investors are loving these things, and trust me, I went to the classes. All right, I first was introduced to this concept from the investor side of the house. Right, I know the ins, the outs, and the fact that any day at the end of the day, investor just walks away. All right, they don't care if the house gets foreclosed on; they got theirs. All right. You as the seller, because you still have a note out there with your name on it, when that note does not get paid, it's going to be your credit score that takes the hit. All right, so caveat emptor, or whatever the Latin is for seller beware. Realize these are, sometimes when you see that fancy financing stuff, this is what they're talking about. And make sure that if you're listing your property, you have an agent who knows the pitfalls. Instead of going to support, hey, why don't we just do this? We'll get your house sold quicker. All right. Yeah, you're going to get your house sold quicker, but you got this sort of Damocles hanging over your head, for a certain amount of time. Negotiable. Right. So, anyways, did not plan for that little rant, but since I just came out of that conversation, it's top of mind. Let's take a look what's going on in the numbers, because I sort of like how these numbers came out today. All right. These are the numbers that I ran on June 5th, 2024. Actives this week are 17,602. That's down 178 from last week. New listings, though, were at 2,123, which is up 296. All right. Amount of contracts came down to 169. As I was, contracts went up 169, and closings were at 2,193. Coming soon to an MLS near you are 653. Pay close attention to the fact that inventory actually went down. All right, nice little trend, but contracts went up. Is this signaling more activity on the buyer side? So does this mean more demand on the demand side? Well, remember, these numbers down here that I read, these actually come out the Friday after I do the report. So these numbers right here are from last week. All right. My numbers up here are from week to week, Wednesday morning to Wednesday morning. These numbers down here will always lag a week. All right. And on this one, we see supply go down, or supply come up a bit. We see demand go down a bit, and creating more of a balance at 105.9. So next week is going to be a lot of fun to watch, right? And let's keep an eye on this thing next week, because if we see supply drop or supply go up, which it should, or should go down, right? But we see demand start going up, okay, then we might, depending on the ratio between the two, we'll see what happens with the comfort number. But right now, we're still, as of last week, we were still trending more towards balance, because this was like a 107 there. All right. So let's look what's happening at the local neighborhoods and cities. All right. So I see a lot of red. All right. Chandler's coming down, but they're still at 209.8. That's like 2 buyers for every 1 seller. Fountain Hills is still going up 19%. I think they're overall gainer. All right. They're at 186.0. Might be able to see in a month or so. If that trend continues, Chandler coming down 5%, that would put them down like another 10. That would put them about 199. If Fountain Hills goes up another 19%, that would put them about 199. Interesting. Let's keep an eye on, see if Fountain Hills passes Chandler in the next month or so. All right, and then we got Gilbert, Mesa, Avondale, Glendale, Tempe, Phoenix, all falling. All right, Paradise Valley, rich people, we don't care about them, gaining. Scottsdale, Peoria, all falling. Goodyear is take a look at this. Goodyear and Buckeye. These are the Southwest Valley. They're both surging right now. Okay, Goodyear's at 14%. All right. This time last month, they were at a buyer's market. Now they're in a balanced market. About as balanced as you can get at is 101.4. And we see Buckeye pulling itself up. Right. A little 3%, but remember Buckeye's farther out than Goodyear. Right? And Maricopa is still down there at the bottom. So it looks like most of our activity is headed to the southwest portion of the valley, which is really awesome, because I got a listing out there that is kicking off in about 3 hours, right, in Goodyear. We'll see how that one plays out. But what's going on in the Southeast Valley? Now, I just saw something on the news, but it was behind a paywall, that Microsoft is just increasing the size of one of their plants out in El Mirage. Right? There is a lot of commercial growth going on the southwest side. I don't pay a lot of attention to local news and stuff unless it hits my email feed first thing in the morning. But that seems to be where people are going. And if you look at that, if you're looking at South Phoenix, all right, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 450. All right, we're seeing, and then of course all the builders that are going on out there on the west side, we're starting to see some movement. All right, we're seeing that particular area start really picking up. Now, on a note along these lines, I remember, and I think I've told you guys this story before, when I first moved down here in 2001, and as the roll up 2, 3, 4, 5, oh my God, when we're rolling into 06 and things are blowing up, my company that I worked for did a study, and the study was, where is the center of population going to be? What's the projected growth for Maricopa? And in their minds, and this report stated that Westgate, right, which is where the Cardinal Stadium is at, whatever they're called in the Cardinal Stadium this year is at, out there on the 101 loop, they were projecting that by 2030, that would be the center of population for Maricopa County. So they were anticipating a lot more growth out in the west side. And there's some reason for that. You only go so far east before you hit Indian reservations and state land. All right, but you got a lot of land you can go out towards the west. So they were expecting to see more growth out to the west. And that's definitely where a lot of the builders are at. All right, Goodyear, Buckeye, Surprise. All right, and going up towards Lake Pleasant. So are we going to see more and more of that balance move over that? Very interesting question to ask. I could see it happening, and there are days I could actually almost justify, hey, let's start looking at moving to Goodyear or Buckeye. It'd be the same commute time for the wife, but then we'd be out in the suburbs, and I wouldn't have all my cool little funky bars and whatnot that I like going to, and all my cool little funky restaurants. So, I'm a downtown urban kind of guy, I'll be honest with you. So, but that's, let's see if this continues on. For some reason, people want to move out into that area. Right? A lot of these houses were built relatively recently. All right, so it had a high churn. So part of the reason for that ratio might be is that people just got into the house and not willing to go anywhere. But people are definitely moving out there, and that's why you see Goodyear and even Buckeye starting to move up on the board. So, topic that popped in my head that I wanted to take a really brief look at was, we were talking, there was some discussion going out there on the internet about Americans and their super big houses. And do they really need their super big houses? And my part of the argument is, no, I think a lot of times at a certain square footage, you're just tacking on ego. All right. And wait, you do you, all right? We ain't communist frickin' Russia here, boys and girls. If you want to buy a McMansion, you can buy a McMansion. So I did a really quick search, right, and I found this wonderful little chart right here that I'm going to share with you, right? And this chart is from the data that they have. Notice all the gray areas they don't have data for. Average square footage of a house, all right? And I highlighted United States, that's why we're in orange right there. And our average square footage is 2,164 square feet per house. That's a pretty decent sized house, right? But just as an aside, so you know, the place that I'm listing out there in Goodyear, all right, it's 3,000 square feet, right? 4-bedroom, 4-bath, swimming pool, 2-car garage. All right. Not that I'm pushing it too hard or anything like that, but it's 3,000 square feet. Like, wow, 3,000 square feet, much of almost 50% more, maybe more, about 40% more of whatever the United States average is. But I want you to take a look at these guys down here. All right, for you guys who fell asleep in geography class, that is Australia, the land down under, and that is New Zealand, the Shire. All right, so we're looking at Middle Earth, we're looking at the land down under. All right, they have bigger houses. How much bigger? Let's find out. That's why I came up with this. Australia is number one. Their average home size is 2,300 1,203 square feet. New Zealand's number 2 at 2,174, and we're coming in at 2,164 average across the board. All right. So Australia, New Zealand have sort of a lot in common with us, simply for the fact that they have a lot of land and a small population to fill it up with. I always think of Australia as sort of like Arizona with scarier spiders and dingoes who eat your babies. Right? We have coyotes, right? Which is funny because I know people from Australia who think that we got all the dangerous stuff in the Southwest. And it's like, yeah, it's the desert. Everything wants to kill you. It's like, it's Australia. Everything wants to kill you in Australia. They got snails in the sand that will kill you. Snails. Right? But this immediately brought me to my next question, though, is who's got the smallest housing? All right. Smallest housing is India. Their average size of their house is 400 or 504 square feet. That's the size of one of our studio apartments. Right? That is a small one-bedroom apartment. Right? That's their oversized. Now, other thing I noticed on this, and we'll just go back to this map. I did check communist Russia. Okay, they're actually in the 600s. Their average house size. China's a little bit bigger. You can see that get darker. Japan's a little bit bigger. France, better sized houses. England, smaller houses. Don't know why Norway did not get in on stating how big their houses are. Africa, South America, Mexico's not on this. But it's just like an interesting little call out. So India's got the smallest. Australia's got the biggest. I'd be really interested in seeing what the India to Australia immigration route looks like. So let's break it down by state just to make it fun. Biggest properties, all right, Iowa. Okay, biggest one I could find, Iowa was at 2104. Right. I find it a little bit weird but I'm looking at a different chart here on a different time frame. Okay, so don't compare apples to apples on this one, because if you notice, the average was, and hey, if I was number one, how can you possibly just, that's why I'm saying you two different data sets, boys and girls, but Iowa leads the pack. In this chart I was looking at, 2104. Arizona, we're at 1712. All right, slightly smaller than an 1,800 square foot house. All right, average. Right, Hawaii is the smallest state at 1452. All right. That's the average size of their houses. And on that chart, the smallest place of all was District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. at 1185. So what does this mean? It just breaks down how different cultures in even different states, the Iowa average is 1,000 square feet more. That's one more of the house that I live in. All right. D.C., okay. That's got to be an apartment. That's got to be a townhouse. Now remember, D.C. is it's small, right? It's smaller than Rhode Island, right? So, and it was always going to be small. And so you can see why they built the dense pack in. Iowa, a lot of space, right? And when you're just replacing cornfields with houses and stuff like that is, go for it, right? And then, so the concept of size of house is, this is something I'm chewing on in my head because I got to write something up on this for a marketing promotion website that I'm planning. All right. If you do not have limited funds, then if price doesn't matter, then you can go with any size. This house that I got coming on, all right, it's a 4-bedroom with a den downstairs, den office downstairs, and a loft upstairs on the landing up the fireplace or up the stairway. Right? So separate living room, separate family room. Right? It's big. It's 3,000 square feet. Right? If you put a family of 3 in there, are they really going to use all that space? Well, 4 bedrooms, you got enough space for guests, for mom to have her home office and dad to have his home office, and Bob's your uncle, everything's good to go. Spare bedroom downstairs that you can use for a guest, or when mom and dad come to stay with you finally, or however you work that out. But remember, we got these new builds from the episode I covered a while ago. New builds coming in at 1,200 square feet. That's under Arizona average, that under national average, but those are starter homes, and they're also in the 400s, the 420s, about like that. Like the house I was talking to you about, one of our agents up front has listed at she just dropped the price to $445. So $445 for a 3.2. All right. The size matters. All right. One of the things that builders are doing, and a lot of people are saying, oh, builders build too big and this, that, and the other thing. Well, they wouldn't build it if you guys wouldn't buy it. If there wasn't a market there, people don't build things unless they have a market for it, unless you're the federal government. Right? And Congress decided we want you to build 5 more LCSs than the Navy says they need, because damn it, we've got to keep that ship line open because those guys are going to vote for me next year. Right? That kind of stuff. Which the only reason why they're buying more of those little LCSs is literally because the ship that's supposed to replace it, they screwed up the design. Right? And it went from, we're going to use an off-the-shelf design, and they completely turned it over to bureaucracy and decided to have meetings about it. And next thing you know, it's a Frankenboat, a Frankenfrigate. And that should have been the name to this episode. But as you see, as those, inflation rates went up and hit the 7s and stuff like that, all of a sudden those big luxury homes, mini luxury homes like the one we're talking about, right, suddenly they hit a cap. Right? Because now your price point getting into a place is really much bigger. And if that's not a first-time homebuyer house, the one down in South Phoenix is a first-time homebuyer house, even though there's only $70,000 worth of difference. Right? One of them's got a lot better location because you're not driving from Goodyear and back, theoretically. So what does this mean to you? It's just another example of the big circle of life. All right? We, housing size have to deal with culture. I seriously doubt an American family of 4 could live in 400 square feet without showing up in the news because somebody axe murdered somebody. All right. So that 504 in India, but Indian family, I don't know how big Indian families are. I don't know if they have the same urbanization problem that we have here in the States, and actually the entire world has, is that people move to the cities and they quit having kids. But as these things go along, and as you wind up in a position in your life where you're getting ready to retirement, and you really need to start figuring out, what do you want to do? I know a lot of friends my age and older, kids have launched, rattling around in very huge houses. All right. Most of them are getting right on close to retirement. Right. And if any of you guys are watching, paying attention to this, I want you to seriously start considering figuring out that house that you have. If you're at all scared about retirement, right, uncomfortable about the future, maybe you're not sure in 20 years you're going to be able to walk up that extra flight of stairs. If you can't, I talked to this really nice little old lady and stuff like that. She lives in a townhome. She hasn't been upstairs in 4 months because it hurts her hips too much to climb the stairs. She moved into the downstairs bedroom. Right, literally half of her townhouse she isn't using. Right, there's, and I'm not talking downsizing. Right, everybody wants to. Oh yeah, downsize. Downsizing has this really nasty minimalist Zen vibe coming in with it. All right, there's much to be said for that. All right, but smart sizing. All right, reducing the excess space, reducing the excess cost, but more importantly, not just going small, but looking towards the future and what your future needs are going to be. You bought the house expecting to raise a family there. The family is raised and gone. What is now your future going to be? All right. Downsizing is just getting small. Smart sizing is looking into the future, figuring out what you're going to be, and making sure your house is the right home for the future you. Your future you will be very happy with you currently if you take these steps in their best interest. Does that make sense? All right. Sort of chewing on marketing vibes here. So, and who knows? Okay. Maybe your kids are launched. They start talking about having all the kids that they want to have because you're going to be grandparents and stuff like that. So you do want your future house to be the home everybody comes home for Christmas at. Everybody comes home for Thanksgiving at, all right? You want to sit there, be surrounded by a loving family, looking out the window at the children and pets around the pool, all right? You're working that inner circle, right? That circle number 3, your friends and family, right? And you're looking forward to another great weekend wherever it is you land at. Thank you very much. You guys have a great weekend.